Welcome back. This should look familiar to you from our very first introduction of area. We ended with just talking about what it means to measure. And so we measured this yellow material and we found that the space is measured in 50 of these square units. Now, some of you have had this work before, and you have a different way of solving this than counting each square. We counted each square in the previous video, but I want you to think, I'm going to give you a minute, and I want you to think of at least two other ways than counting the squares where you could find the area or find how many squares are on here. Okay, so go ahead and think about it. I hope that was enough time. It seemed like Selena thought that was a plenty of time for her to think of a couple ways. So I'll ask her first. And if this is your idea, great. If it's not your idea, think about seeing it in a different way, because a lot of the times with math problems, there is more than one way to solve them. So Selena, what was one way you thought of, and I'm going to grab a piece of paper to record it. What was one way you thought of to solve this?
One way you could do it is simpler than counting one by one. You can count, because each of these sections have 5 squares, so you could count 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50.
Okay, so I'm going to move this box out of the way that leaves this here.
Lots of things.
Where did our little paper go? I don't know where it's stuck to the bottom. Okay, so here is our area material. So the other day we counted 1 by 1, meaning we did 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 for a long time. So Selena said what she did is she said this row or this column here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so she counted by 5s. So she said count by 5. So she had 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. Oh my goodness, how many 5s did we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 5s. 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus.
I know, simpler way you can do that.
Whew, so she added 5 10 times and that gave her 50. Okay, cool. Okay, so there was one way. There was a second way. Can I give my way? Maybe it's your other way. I know that there are 10 along the bottom, so I counted by 10s. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So there's another way. I can count by 10. 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals 50. I was so distracted. Okay. Maybe those are the two ways you thought of. Maybe there's another way. And I think some of you have had this lesson before, already know what that other way is. Do you have another way?
I don't know how to explain that in a simple way.
So the other way, and I know some of you already know this, you know that we can count by 10 if we go this way, or we can count by 5 if we go this way. Some of you know that we can take the number that there are across the bottom and multiply it by how many we have across the side. So some of you know that we can just say 10 times 5, which is what's here. 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 is the same as 10 taken 5 times. So we can multiply the two measures. Multiply the measures. We know there's 10 on one side, and we're multiplying by 5 on the other side 10 times 5 equals 50. There's 4 ways that we just did together of finding the area of this rectangle. There are other ways that you could think about on your own. These are the easiest 4. These are the 4 ways that you can, if you do it these ways, you won't make a mistake, because these are the easiest ways. So now when you are finding the area, you could use any of these methods. You could count one by one if you have a grid, or if you're doing it on graph paper. If you're working on graph paper, you can also count by one of the sides, like whatever your measure is on one side, and multiply and add it across. Or you can find the measure of one side and the measure of the second side and multiply them together. So let's look at an example of that. I just happened to grab a whole slew, meaning a lot of different things, of different kinds of paper around the house. Now, it doesn't have to be a piece of paper. You can use anything that's a rectangle. But here I just have a piece of, printer paper, copy machine paper, or drawing paper, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to find the area of this. I'm going to write right on this piece of paper. If you're doing this at home, make sure you're using paper that your family is okay with you cutting or using or drawing on.
And a pencil.
And you want a pencil. So another thing to think about when you're at home, we don't have these magic materials with these perfect measured units on them. And so I want you to estimate or round your measure to the nearest whole number, so that you're not trying to do multiplying with fractions or doing bits and pieces before we get to that work. So for this work, I want you to round your pieces. I'm going to switch us to a view so you can see the paper closer, and maybe that will make more sense to you. Okay, so here is our rectangular piece of paper and our ruler. And I'm going to just push this ruler right up to the bottom here. And I'm going to look across, and it comes to 11 inches. And since I know that I can write on this piece of paper, I'm going to just label right here. This side is 11 inches. 11 inches. And now I'm going to measure the other side of my paper. And the other side is more than 8, but less than 9. So I'm just going to pick the difference between them. We're going to just choose either 8 or 9. Which would you like to choose?
8.
8. So we're going to call this side 8 inches. If we were doing different work, we would want to be more accurate. But for this work, we're just rounding it to the closest whole inch so that we can do our work. So when we look at this, we have 11 inches on this side and 8 inches on this other side. And so we can either count 8 11 times, or we can count 11 8 times, or we can multiply 11 times 8.
I know I'm not good at 8 facts.
Selena says 8 facts aren't her friend, but we're going to do it a couple different ways, because maybe these aren't your friends either. These facts aren't easy for you. So we'll just start with 11. So we're going to have 11, and we want to add it 8 times. 11 plus 11 plus 11. 1, 2, 3, 11. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 11s, and we're going to add them all together. What is 1 plus 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 1? 8. 8. And it looks like we have exactly the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The area of this piece of paper is 88 inches squared.
It's so weird to watch.
88 inches squared. That is the area of this piece of paper. So we did it by adding. If you are comfortable with your multiplication facts, you could do 11 times 8. And we start with our units. We have 8 times 1.
What a catch up.
We have 8 times 1 is 8. And then we have 8 times our 10 gives us 80. And we get 88 square inches. So whether you do it by adding or by multiplying, you get the same answer. You can use any kind of piece of paper. Here's a small piece of paper we can measure. Measure the bottom here. It's closest to 3 inches.
What? Oh.
3 inches. And then we'll measure our other side, and it's close to 2 inches. So I can either add 3 2 times, 3 plus 3. Whoa. 3 plus 3, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches squared. Or I could say 3 times 2 is 6 inches squared. And there's our answer. And like I said, you can use anything. Here's just a Post-it note. And you could measure your Post-it note. This one is also 3 inches long. I'm going to abbreviate inches, IN. And I'm going to turn it this way. And it's
We know that would be 3 because squares are perfect.
Oh, Selena made the assumption that this was a square Post-it note, but it might not have been. So here we have 3 inches by 3 inches. So we can add 3 plus 3 plus 3. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 3 more makes 9 inches squared. Or we can do 3 times 3, which equals 9 inches squared. It doesn't matter if you add or multiply, your answer comes out the same.
You should have shown our giant paper.
Okay, so I hope that you're able to find some rectangles in your house, either pieces of paper or maybe a cabinet door or a floor rug. Selena's grabbing something that's super handy. Maybe the cover of your book.
Don't write on the book.
Don't write on your books. Another place you can find rectangles, not just the cover of a book, but the side of a book is a rectangle. This side is a different rectangle. Maybe it would be fun to find how many different rectangles are on one object. So that is my challenge to you, is that you find some rectangles in your environment to find the area of. Now for your recording of this, because if you're not recording on a piece of paper, you need a way to record. So we have a math journal here, and I'm going to go ahead and write in it. And I will show you a picture. I'll take a picture of it and add it to the video and the lesson of what your follow-up should look like in a journal. Because if you don't take your notes in here and they're all scattered on random Post-it notes and things, and your parents are tidying up after you, you might lose your work. So we're going to take our notes right here in your math journal. So I'm going to record some of the notes I've taken, like different ways that I can find area, and I'm going to record a couple examples and put them in here. Another thing you can do is draw rectangles in your graph paper and measure them using the units on your paper, or you can still use a ruler. Selena's very eager to say something.
If you do use the ticket, you can take a piece of tape and tape it in your journal just to keep that piece of
That's
tape.
an excellent suggestion. Yeah, so like this Post-it note that we use, we can Post-it note it right into our math journal. I don't know why I held it up. I can show you right down here. We can tape this in. We can stick our Post-it note right there. And if you did something like the area of a rug in your kitchen or the cabinet door, you would just record it, and I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. When you do that, you want to make sure that you are, because you're not drawing it exactly the way you see it in the environment, you're going to want to label your sides. So if I were doing, say,
the fridge.
Whoa, the fridge. If I were saying I was doing the refrigerator, I would say area of my refrigerator. And then I would just kind of draw it. My refrigerator is a tall rectangle like this direction. And it doesn't have to be exact or perfect or anything. We just need the rectangle and label it. So we're going to estimate it. Go stand next to it so we can see how tall it is. She's going to go measure with her body. It is approximately 5 feet tall. So I'm going to put 5 feet.
I'd say like 5'7" inches.
Well, we're rounding. Yeah. So we're saying it's 5 feet tall by about 4 feet wide. It's probably close to 3.5. So here's our refrigerator. It's 4 feet by 5 feet. And then I'm going to do that math right here. I can do 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, 5 taken 4 times. Or I could do 5 times 4, 5, 10, 15, 20. And 5 times 4 is 20. So the area of my refrigerator equals 20 feet squared. Just like that. So that's how you would record. If you're not recording on the item and taping it in your journal, then you can just draw a rectangle and label the parts and tell me what it is you measured, and make sure that you call out your answer either with a different color or circle so I can find it. I drew this pretty large. You can probably do it a little bit smaller so you can fit 2 on a page. I drew it really big so you could see it on the camera. So if you can find some rectangles in your environment, that'll be great. I can't wait to see them. You can measure using anything. If you don't have a ruler handy, or if you like to measure with pens, you could do this piece of paper and you could, ooh, it's really big. It's bigger than you can see. You could measure how many pens. There's 1 pen and there's a second pen. This paper is 3 pens long and it is 2 pens wide. So when I would do the area of this, I'd say 3 pens times 2 pens. This paper is 6 square pens. 6 square pens.
That sounds weird.
That's a funny way to measure. You can measure with anything. So make sure that when you label it though, you tell me what your unit was, if it was a pen or an inch or a ruler or a unit, and a square, because we're measuring with squares. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this second bit of area of a rectangle, and I look forward to learning about rectangles at your house. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you soon.